So now that we understand this concept of having a fallback and of generating certain pages for certain IDs, let's take another look at the not found case that we're trying to request a page which doesn't exist. And let's start by simply visiting a page with a product ID of P4. Now we get a 404 error page here, so a not found page. Because in our data, we only have the IDs P1, P2, and P3. There is no product with an ID of P4. Now we get this not found error because in getStaticPaths, we load and build our array of IDs, our array of routes or of parameters for which pages should be generated from that dummy backend JSON file. So paths with params here in the end is an array where we only configure param pairs, so PID value pairs, for the values P1, P2, P3, since these are the only IDs that exist in that dummy backend JSON file. And automatically, if we then try to load this page for an ID which was not pre-generated, we do get this 404 error. Now that makes sense. What if we use fallback true though? What if we, for example, assume that the products stored in dummy backend.json might not be all the products for which we are able to fetch data? So we only generate pages for the free product IDs we find in that file, because we go through that file here in getStaticPaths. But by setting fallback to true, we then also tell Next.js that even if an ID value is not found here, we still might be able to render a page. That's what the idea behind fallback is, that we don't have to predefine all possible pages, all possible values for the dynamic segment. So therefore, now if I set fallback to true here, we will see that if I visit P4, I get this error that we cannot read the property title of undefined. Now we saw that before in the course already. We get this because we need to have this fallback scenario here that we're still waiting for a product. Because when we set fallback to true and not to blocking, then Next.js will instantly return a page which does not yet have the data, and it will load the data in the background and give it to us on the page and re-render the page once the data is there. So we need to render this fallback for the time we're waiting for the product to load. But if I now do that and I reload, we see loading here, but then after a while we get another error, failed to load static props. And this hopefully also makes sense. I'm trying to load this product page for an ID of P4, for which we just don't have any data. Because in getStaticProps, we are also reaching out to dummy backend JSON, and we're trying to find our product by ID in that file. And we won't find a product with ID P4 in that file. So we see loading initially as a fallback, but then Next.js tries to load the actual data for this page, and it just fails there because we don't have such a product. So that's why we get this error eventually here then, because it failed to load the actual data. Now that is a perfect example for setting the not found property on the object we return in getStaticProps. Here, when we try to get our product, we also want to check if we don't have a product. And if we don't have a product, so if we failed to find a product for the given ID, then we want to return an object where not found is set to true. By setting this, we are able to use fallback true and try to find a product for a parameter value which was not predefined here, because maybe we do have that. Maybe dummy backend JSON is a more dynamic data source which could yield that product. But if we then still fail to fetch it, we don't want to return the regular page with the missing data, which causes an error, but we then want to show the not found, the 404 error page instead. So with that, if we save this, now you see for P4, I get loading and then the 404 page. And for P3, on the other hand, it still works as before. So that's how we can then utilize the not found property here in getStaticProps together with fallback true. And of course, it's up to you which combination makes the most sense for your exact scenario and use case. This is just one example and one other idea of using Next.js and its features.